Hi, good evening. Welcome to the Board of Education Finance Committee meeting for Monday, May 12th, 2025. Item number 2 is public comment. I don't see anyone here at this time. No public comment. Item number 3 is the approval of the minutes from April 14th, 2025. Bonnie, did you receive any corrections? Does anyone have any at this time? Oh, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right, our minutes are passed. Item number 4, discussion consideration. We have the 2024-2025 budget to ending projections presentation. Mr. Latham?
Thank you and good evening. So this exercise is probably more for my own benefit than it is for yours. If I see something that's like way out of line, then it's where I start looking. And some things are actually correct, some things are timing, some things are just one year to the next that are just a little different. So I'll just go ahead and jump into the presentation. So this is my budget to ending projections, where I forecast out. I use basically just a simple method of number of months through a point in time, divide that by the number of months, times that by the full amount, and see where we might end up. It's not a perfect system, but at least gives me some projections. So these are our revenues to our projected ending balance. And I won't go through them all, but I'll just highlight a couple of those for the sake of time, and we can always have some more conversation. So looking at the levy that will be coming into May and June, traditionally we'd be looking at 50%. Usually it's about 49.5 because we don't always get all the taxes that we anticipate. So I moved it up a little bit, so that's why you see it coming in at a little higher. More at 102% because I felt like this year might be like many in the past. That first installment we tend to get more because of escrow. So even though I levied, I went back and adjusted that to maybe something more appropriate. And some of the other highlights I'd like to point out is our personal property replacement tax. That is one of those taxes that's through business-like activity that's flowed to the district through the Illinois Department of Revenue. That's had some up and down over the last couple of years. There was a miscalculation where we got a lot of personal property tax, and then it was reduced. And then at some point in time, it seems like there's been some changes to the tax law. I will just put it out there that in next year's budget, I will reduce that amount by 35%. That seems to be the going rate that we're receiving word on from the state of Illinois. A couple other areas is our lunch program. It seems like it's trending in a positive direction this year. Seems like we've added a lot of different food opportunities and choices for our students, and we've seen the revenue from that continue to increase over the prior year, so I think that will end strong. I just looked at the lunch sales from last month, and they seem like they were very good, and I'll be meeting with Sodexo at the local food manager level and the regional manager level tomorrow to talk a little bit about more what next year might look like. Our student activity and our participation fees seem like they're doing extremely well. As you know, with COVID, that all came to an end, and we've slowly built up that process, and we've seen students be more active and want to be more involved in a lot of the school activities. So from what I had to start bringing up the budgetary number, looks like we're doing really good with that activity by our students. Our donations to the district as a whole are down, so we've received donations at different levels. So anyone that wants to give one to the district for the district's use and decision making can do so. That seems to be down, but they're still very strong, still at some of the school levels, but overall donations are down this year, and so that's reflected in some of those numbers. I didn't realize I had my words on the bottom of this. I must have picked a very different PowerPoint than I normally do. Maybe I borrowed this from Jeanette. I don't know. Interest income. All I can say is we're having a spectacular year in our investment and our return on investment. We made some very good choices early on to ladder our investments farther out, as many as 5 years out. And although we're seeing those percentage of return come down, I think we probably made a high of, I think the highest I had was maybe 5.4%. I'm seeing more of the 4 to 4.2 come in. So we will see the interest income go down next year just because I can't get the same investment return that I could this year, but we will continue to realize what we've had invested. We also had a lot of our certificate of deposits that were non-callable, and I've added some callable choices recently just because I could get a better rate. And so we don't have quite as long investments as we had, but we're making the best investments that we can for this point in time and for future. Okay, I think that covers everything on the local funds and our education fund.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Just out of curiosity, the current year special education levy, what is that? Just define that for me, not the numbers, but
Right.
what it is.
Sure. So that's an area that I've continued to increase as the costs for our special education programs have gone up. So for many years we kept that very stable, and I realized that I should probably be increasing that in line with our expenditures, and I'll continue to do so. So I've just tried to realize and maybe represent a better cost. That's not the full cost of our special education programs, but I will continue to increase that levy amount to be more applicable and appropriate for our opposite spending.
From the definition perspective, that's just the fund that we can levy specifically for special ed
needs.
I just
services.
read it wrong.
Yeah.
I read it as a special education
yeah,
levy. Okay,
yeah,
not,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
I will point out that since we've migrated to our new financial system, it's going to be different for all of us. Sometimes we're limited in the number of characters or statements that we can place. So I can't guarantee that all of our reports are going to look pretty perfect or right, but we continue to make changes in that as we've migrated into a new software system. So that's what that levy's for. So it has increased over time. It used to be somewhat stable every year, but I've continued to increase that just to be more reflective of the need on both sides of special education. Okay, this is a little bit about our state and federal. So this is where we receive a lot of the funds that we have, such as evidence-based funding. One area that seems to be up this year is our orphanage reimbursement. It's a very difficult area for me to budget every year because it really includes students that are placed in orphanage or foster care. I never know what that is in a year, so I use a historical look-back time frame, and I budget, but it does seem like we've had a lot more students that we place in those types of situations, and we received greater reimbursement than we have in past years. So I just want to point out what that orphanage was. And the timing of that is sometimes very odd. State gives it sometimes at the very end of the year. So some of this also could have been in last year that was received in the current fiscal year for revenue. I always anticipate.
Todd, could you just get that a little closer to you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is this better?
Sorry. Yeah, that's
Okay.
helpful. Thank you.
As I get used to all of our new technology. So one of the areas that I always try to anticipate us maximizing the spending is our grants. My theory is if we write a grant, it's for the students and the needs of that given year, and we should be very adamant about spending all those grant dollars down. Sometimes we do not, and we have what's called carryover funds, which means we didn't maximize the entire grant that can be applied for and carried over the next year. So when I look at some of our grants, although I like to see in the forecast that we're spending all those dollars, I do realize that there may be some areas of our grants and specific ones that aren't realized and therefore may have some carryover dollars. So in reality, when we come back at the end of the year, the grants may not be all spent. And then the last area is Medicaid payments. There was an issue in the past about Medicaid and how we would file for it and some of the conditions. And most recently in this year, we received some more funds that we did not anticipate. So I kind of budget again off of what I think we'll receive historically, because we received that two ways, Medicaid and then fee for service. Fee for service is more of the administrative side of that and how we administrate the program. We can capture some of those dollars back. So those numbers were very different than probably what I planned, just because there were some changes in how you could use your formula to recoup dollars. So I'll be more attentive to that in the next budget. All right, questions on our state or federal funding? Okay. Looking at our operations and maintenance, again, interest is very strong. Our E-rate is where we utilize a program that we can get reimbursement for some of our telecommunication needs. We've done really good with that. We may be at the max of where we're at, but I still forecast it out using my method. And then our evidence-based funding was fully realized for improvement of the learning environment. And so our operations and maintenance fund is just coming in just a little bit over what we anticipated. And again, a lot of that's due to the interest income. And then just stop me if you have questions. I'll just keep moving through these because they get a little lighter. Our debt service fund, right at 100%. That's the one we almost always know the numbers of what we ask for and what we pay. And then the last part of that is our transportation fund. Some of the areas that I want to point out in that is that, again, interest income. And some of the areas, though, that will change at the very end is that as we see the delivery of bus sales come in, we'll also be selling buses, and so you'll see some of that revenue come back in. Those are basically local assets that we'll sell and bring back. So a lot of that's just timing, but I did want to indicate that we expect to get all the money that we budgeted. We've already had a lot of people ask for our buses because when you buy a used bus, you don't have to bid, so a lot of people just kind of want to skip the bid process and see what other buses are out there as part of their strategy. All right, Fund 50 and Fund 51. So Fund 50 is basically our Social Security and our Medicare. We're only going to come higher only because of our interest income. One of the things that we'll be looking at next year is maybe change the way in which we reallocate our interest income. We use a traditional method where we look at the prior month ending balances of each fund, and then we allocate the money that we've earned. Some of our funds are getting pretty high just because of that, and I think we'll take a different strategy and look at maybe placing more of this towards some of our capital needs. And so we may reallocate some of these dollars on some funds that don't need it. I also cut back on the levy into next year on Fund 50 and Fund 51, knowing that they've kind of accumulated over time, and we'll solve that by pulling back the interest income. Fund 51 is our Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, which is where our non-certified staff end up. And again, that's projected higher because of that revenue of our investments. And the last item on this particular slide is Fund 60. That's our capital projects. Again, interest income is the largest area that we're seeing the gain in that revenue. Fund 70 is all interest income, which is our working cash. So that's really our investment fund. That's why it has the largest return out of any of them for interest income. Our tort fund is basically a reserve fund for those areas that we need to keep a reserved interest income. And lastly, life, health, safety. We don't levy until we have a need from the life, health, safety study, and so that's just interest income as well. So when we look at the totals, we budgeted $137,490,082. I anticipate under this projection model at $140,291,158, which puts us at about 102%. I'd always rather be over on revenue and under on expenses. Keeps me employed. Okay, any questions on revenue? All right, we'll move on to our expenses. So these are a little different look. This is how your reports come to you in your board packet. So we address those by salary, benefits, purchase services, supplies and materials, capital outlay. Other projects, which again are areas such as our tuition to external groups such as Mid-Valley or Fox Valley Career Center, and our non-capital. Our threshold for the district has always been a $3,000 for capital. Based upon the cost of things lately, we may want to go back and look at that. If we'd like to change it, that is up to the board. So salaries are higher, and so I want to talk a little bit about why that might be the case. So in a business manager's life, salaries can be over for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it's just a bad estimation. That can happen. In this case, though, I believe it's more that we've had some employees leave and we have payouts. Our employees receive benefits, so things like vacation, retirements. We have some of those payouts that occur out of this fund as well. But one of the areas that is difficult from year to year is our Family Medical Leave Act. People that are out on approved federal leave that may be still utilizing their benefits to pay themselves for their own reason, but we have to hire a replacement. And that's where sometimes it's not known until things occur during the year that we cover our employees' time off. Then the other part of that is budgeting versus our final enrollment. So it might be the case where I budget for 5 teachers, but at the end of enrollment we need 6. So some of that is sometimes the change at the end of the year. And also when we bring someone in, we place them on the schedule, depends where we place them. Some of the benefits are similar. Those change from year to year. So somebody that could be single might move to a family plan. I still have to project those. We start the fiscal year in July, but elections take place starting kind of this month for a period of time, plus new employees, so that could also indicate why this benefit estimation might be off. Supplies seem low. I did try to project it out, but usually this is the spending month. Everyone is in a panic because the school year is getting over, and I see a lot less, last minute spending. We typically close our requisitions and our purchase orders, then move them toward more like discretionary spending with our purchase cards. So we'll see some of that probably play out. So you'll probably see a very heavy spending period in the month of May that you'll see probably in June. And the other part of that too is a lot of our supplies are grants, so we put those in and we spend those. And some of our capital spending in Fund 10 is for our technology. I do that. We've made some purchases. A lot of times we've been trying to look at the global market and figure out where we need to be for one, to receive the items that we need in a timely basis to be prepared for school. So even though we get a computer, we still have to put the software on it and make sure it works and have them all ready for our students. And the last part of that is also some of our switches and hardware, those kinds of things that you'll see in the technology plan. Our capital is likely to increase as well at the end of the fiscal year, and then we might possibly have some ending balances that are over the estimate, but I hope not. So usually I try to slow the spending down. I try to monitor it a little better. We have some mechanisms in place to make sure that we don't have a large overage in our expense area. All right, Fund 20. Okay, so at this point in time, I think it looks very good. There might be just some end-of-year repairs and some change orders. Not so much in this, but you'll see in capital. What you'll usually see in this is those little smaller projects we take care of at the end of the year, things that break or need repair that we'll start repairing for next year. So if you look at the capital outlay, it seems like it's a little low. I imagine it'll probably come in closer to the 100% at the end of that. Other than that, the fund looks great, in my opinion. All right, Fund 30, this is just our debt service. It's almost always 100%, so not much to talk about there. Fund 40, their transportation fund. So some of the things I notice is that our salaries are up. I don't know why. Sometimes it's because we have a monitor. Sometimes we have some drivers that we need to call in for the same thing, and they're just like FMLA situations. So sometimes those salaries are up, so I typically go back and review those. Our benefits are down, though, so that also sometimes is an election between choices, which one might be cheaper for us. So it looked like that was to the benefit of the school district. Our purchase services are up, so as our fleet is still aging, we still have some costs. I've seen some things like towing come in and some other repairs. However, we do have a large amount of new buses coming in, so I see that going down into the next fiscal year. Our other objects are low, and that's because that is a contingency fund. Remember, I build into that some reserve capacity by a new engine or transmission should we need it. We have not had to do it this year. And then lastly, our capital outlay is at 92%, but it likely will come back up. So this fund is likely to end at 102% for expenses. Again, this is our retirement funds. So this is FICA Medicare and IMRF. So it looks like they're coming in lower, which is the same reason why I'm going to be levying a little less. So I adjust my levy as well to the budget from year to year. And budgeting is sometimes hard because you budget and then you levy. It'd be nice if they're at the same time, but they don't. So sometimes there's some smoothing that needs to take place from fiscal year to fiscal year. All right, this is our Fund 60. This is the fund that always makes me the most nervous out of any fund because it's usually beyond my control. It's ran pretty much from operations and maintenance. It has to do with our capital projects. Sometimes those have change orders. Sometimes those are some unforeseen costs of doing business, some things that we didn't anticipate. At this point, I expect us to come in under budget. That would be my goal.
Your level of nervousness on Fund 60 has gone down then?
No, I always worry about it. It's an area
You're supposed to say yes.
well, it's an area that, as you can see, has been very intense for our district over time because of the needs that we have. I'll feel better when we get a lot of things fixed, and for the next 20 years, we're in good shape. All right, Fund 70 from 80, there is no expense out of those because those are funds that just have a revenue stream to them. And so lastly is our life, health, safety, also called fire safety. And so these are our 10-year items. We had budgeted $711,000 roughly. We have not got to that point. We're just a little under $400,000. So all I anticipate is we still have some of those projects that need to be done. So if you recall, our capital plan has our capital plan items out of Fund 60, and it has those life, health, safety out of 90. So I believe those are still many of the projects to occur for this particular fiscal year. So we had $132,574,203 budgeted. The projection is $134,061,066 at 101%. So my crystal ball says we were going to be 12 million over in our budget because we knew we were spending down some of our reserve dollars in our fund balance. I believe it's only going to come in at about 11.4, so we actually will end up spending a little less overall than anticipated. So we'll see how good I am. All right, questions on our projections?
All right, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so when we put together the budget, the 12,772,000 and $8, we had that coming in as a transfer, correct? Okay, and then you're anticipating the transfer being less.
Not the overall transfer, but just the overall revenue to expenses at the end. The transfer is still what it is. We've already made those.
To the tune of the 12 million.
Yep, by board resolution. So this is actually some dollars will be gained a little bit more of the revenue, but we're going to spend a little less over all the funds.
Okay.
So we will realize a little less spending overall.
Yeah, I think I said it the same way, but just said it not in the CSBO context.
We're all good.
Thank you.
Right. Other questions?
Anything else? All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you. It was fun doing that, I think.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Todd.
good overview to see that. Yeah. All right, moving on to item number 5, future agenda items, nothing there. Item 6, nothing for items for recommendation to the full board. Item 7 is information legislative update. I don't have anything specific for this meeting. Dr. Bear, no? Okay.
Nope.
And item 8 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you.